Hello, Internet. How are we this evening? Hope everybody's having a fantastic, what are we? Is it Wednesday? Is it hump day? I think it's Wednesday. Yeah, surprise stream. I wasn't expecting to do one, and I was on the way home from a radio show that I expected to be on. I thought I was going for longer for some reason. Never had time to do a stream, so I texted my buddy Eric. I was like, hey, want to do a stream? And he was like, sure, let's do a stream. So we're doing a stream. How is everyone? Hope everybody's having a fantastic evening. Rochelle, Humble Surfer, Terry Wallace, First Shot. What you guys know already. All right, nice to see you guys. All right, without further ado, I am going to bring in my good buddy now. We've been hosting Twitter Spaces together, and the more I find out about him, the more I'm fascinated with him. Because first of all, he's hilarious. He flows well with the conversation. He's just so easy to talk to, and that's just a nice thing to have. He's knowledgeable. He knows about stuff that's going on in the world, so it's great. I wish I could be more prepared for an interview style thing, but we're going to do like a quasi interview and talk about stuff that's going on. I want to talk about the Epstein stuff. We'll probably talk about other stuff too. We'll take questions from the chat, all that kind of stuff. So let's be more of a hangout. So without further ado, Eric Abbenante. I hope I said the last name right. Eric Abbenante, how are you?
No, you nailed it. I'm impressed, actually. I thought there's no chance of you getting it right without a little auditioning and helping you out there. That was great.
Oh, Abbenante. Okay, perfect.
All right, you nailed
sweet.
it.
All right,
absolutely.
cool.
No, pleasure to be on, Goat. Really appreciate you. This is a
Yes.
total thrill for me, an honor and a privilege.
Well, dude, we've been talking about doing it for a while, right?
Yeah, just don't make my schedule sound so open. Your people had to reach out to my people. You know, I'm big time. Okay,
you have people.
You didn't just text me. You know, that didn't just happen. You know, I'm not that down to earth people. I'm so successful. It's just like, you know, I really like to talk to the little people, and so that's why I'm here.
You are an Android guy. I saw it. As soon as I saw it, green texting. Here we go.
I like to hack into my phone. Oh, sorry.
I can't even work an Android. I probably couldn't even make a phone call with an Android phone.
You have to speak Korean. That's why most people don't have Androids. People don't know that, but yeah.
All right, man. Dude, okay. So, like I said, I want to do a bit of an interview style thing with you. So I want to get some of your background, but I want to start like way back. I mean, I don't even care if you start with your childhood, because I want to know how you got into comedy. How you met your wife? Like, did you guys get into comedy together? Well, you probably met through comedy. I'm fascinated with you, my friend. I want to documentaries, like all this stuff. How'd you get into all this? How'd you become so interesting?
Well, so I guess so. Thank you. I'm my name's Eric Abbenante. I'm a comedian and a documentarian. The double threat of things that don't make a lot of money initially and really disappointing your parents, you know. But you know, it's you know, I've from 7th grade essentially I just had this notion of like I have to be involved in comedy and filmmaking. I watched like Woody Allen films and South Park guys, you know, and those were like really big inspirations to me. And I just became a comedy historian. And I've always been a history buff, but comedy history to me is as fascinating as it gets because you learn so many stories, and it really it gives you great perspective. We even did 2 documentaries on comedians because we wanted to illustrate comedy history and their story. One was Joan Rivers and Dick Gregory.
I don't think a lot of people would think comedian when they think Joan Rivers.
And that's a shame, because if you're really doing,
she's hilarious.
If you're doing like if you're doing like your top 100, you know, comedy list, Joan Rivers is almost gonna be your unanimous first choice as a woman. In terms of like, she could hang with the guys. She was just pound for pound as funny as any man in her era. And then, as we illustrate in the film Up the Rivers, the Joan Rivers story, she was really funny and translatably funny from the 60s to now. And so that, you know, you only see like the true master craftsmen to where their stuff translates, because a lot of the guys from the 50s, I have to provide context. Like, here's why this joke is kind of funny. But the people who you really saw with amazing humor that translated from the era was Bill Cosby, Dick Gregory, Joan Rivers, Woody Allen. those are the people when you can go back to their albums and hear stuff from the 60s and it translates incredibly well. And so those were like a lot of my big passions, just really learning about comedy and stand up before I did stand up. And then I went out to LA to do stand up. I did shows called like Roast Battle, where I did a bunch of like it's head to head roasting, and it was at the Comedy Store. That was fun. I did stand up for a couple years, and that's how I met my wife.
That was Hinchcliffe, right? They put on Roast Battle.
So Hinchcliffe did a show at the Comedy Store called Kill Tony, and right. Kill Tony is another big show, but it's like open micers go and perform, and then he kind of roasts them.
That's who you remind me of, by the way, is Hinchcliffe. I texted you that late last night.
That's funny. Yeah, I know, that's fun. I have gotten that before. I have gotten that before. And John Mulvaney, I get a lot.
I don't know who that is.
He's the guy with the bit where it's like there's someone struggling with saying the M word, struggling with saying midget and the N word, and they're like, well, it's just the same thing. It's like, well, if you can only say the N word even when describing it, and you could say midget, it's clearly one's worse than the other. That's like his famous bit. You probably know.
I won't say it. I won't ever say it. You will not find any footage of me saying the N word. You won't.
Yeah.
Go for it. Try to find it.
Well, AI is going to change that.
You're right. They're trying. I got to check the chat and make sure they're not throwing up a tower in there now.
Oh yeah, I do know what that is. Yeah, I had to think. Yes, I do know. It's like Ohio. OHIO. But
don't describe it, Eric. God, give me some ideas. All right. So how did yeah? So I'm sorry. So you met your wife through the roast battle?
No, I just met her through stand up and going. She was an amazing stand up her first year, and so we've been dating and living together for closer to a decade than 5 years now. Like, we're really getting there. And so we've just been dating, and she was doing amazing things. We had done so many cool things that happened before the pandemic. Like, we had developed this talk show. That was live. I directed it, and she would have musical guests, comedians on there. She would do a monologue. She would interview people. It was an extravaganza. And then we had it at multiple venues. And then, of course, because of the pandemic, those venues do not exist anymore. And so,
they're straight up gone.
Yeah, I mean, they those businesses have been sold, and there's new things in that. Did
a lot of comedy clubs go under, like forever gone, just disappeared?
Oh yeah, and restaurants too. And so what people don't understand is small businesses, non-chain restaurants are a big part of the comedy circuit in terms of open mics and then small level shows. You go to bars and you go to restaurants, and those are really the bread and butter of where you can start doing independent shows, small show. I mean, but these are important because it's like you getting your foot in the door and getting a cut, and you can make some decent money doing that. And so it was a burgeoning thing. We were all seeing independent rises and how we had all these plans. And then I actually remember, because I was always kind of, I was always considered a conspiratorial comedian, because I had jokes about vaccines being faulty. Like, there's a clip of me talking about it from like 2018, and so
before it was offensive. Well, even then it was.
Well, back then, if you were talking about vaccines, you were considered a like super liberal. Like, that's what libs cared about. Was like, oh, they care about the safety of vaccines, and so it was I
remember like the Jenny McCarthy days. This was so long ago. Like when. Yep. Yeah, my sister used to be like way down that rabbit hole. But that was a lib thing.
Oh, let me give you a snapshot. Let me give you a snapshot of this. Gavin Newsom's wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, there is a lot of footage and like transcripts of her at anti-vaccine rallies, and like she even had discussed how she prevented her kids from receiving specific vaccinations because of her philosophy. Must be nice, to have that freedom.
We're just kind of flowing here, and my brain just works this way because I'm like ADD. But you bring up the whole Newsom thing, and I gotta ask. So you saw
trigger you.
Well, it's. I want your opinion on something. So this is a current event thing. It's a big thing. So they tried to take Trump off the ballot in Colorado, obviously, and then the lieutenant governor, who I never even freaking heard of California, comes out and she's like, "We should take Trump off the ballot too." You saw that, right?
Yeah.
Then Newsom comes out, and it was almost like clockwork, because I think I even said like the day before, I was like, Newsom and Trump are boys. I was like, Newsom never goes after Trump hardcore. He doesn't like even from the beginning here, he goes after DeSantis. He doesn't go after Trump. Have you noticed this? And like even in the beginning of COVID, they were almost complimenting one another.
Well, let's establish what is their connection. What is the Newsom Trump connection?
Ex-wife, right?
Yes. So it's Kimberly Guilfoyle.
And how deep does that go, though?
Well, I mean, it just from that alone, you have to understand, like, it's a little more personal.
What's Trump's relationship with her?
Well, Don Jr. is now married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, who used to be married to Gavin Newsom.
Oh, dude, I'm such an idiot. I didn't even make the connection.
Well, no, it's good to illustrate for the audience. You never want to assume any, and no one in the audience isn't aware. So
I wasn't aware. Like, I didn't know that she's married to Don Jr. Like, I've seen them together. Like, I'm just stupid. Like, there's so many there's so many little things that I'm unaware of that I find out, and I'm like, oh, I definitely should have known that, and I just didn't. Okay. Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. And
I knew she's like, right wing commentator now. She's all for Trump and all that stuff. Okay, she's Trump Jr.'s wife. Okay.
Yeah, and just for people to know, so when I started off doing stand-up, I forgot to mention this. I started off doing almost primarily political comedy. I would talk about myself, obviously, but my niche was political comedy. And back in 2015, that wasn't really a thing. Like, I mean, yes, people would talk about politics, obviously, but if you did primarily political comedy, you're considered a freaking nerd. And
it's like Jimmy Dore and Dave Rubin, basically, right?
Well, if you got to consider 2015, this is well before, back in 2015, politics wasn't the nouveau niche thing. And then once Trump came in, all of a sudden politics became mainstream. So, it was like the Jon Stewart kind of nerds who were into politics, and it was relegated to this over here. And I was quite into it, but I'll be honest, in 2015, I remember thinking, man, no one gives a shit about politics. And then Trump was a godsend for political comedians everywhere. And so that, we made American History of Voter Fraud. It's a film about the three separate rigged elections, 1876, 1960, and 2020. And then it goes in between every kind of major moment in voter fraud in between. And so, for me, the Trump story is very personal, just because people don't understand like how the media obfuscated the truth on all of this. And we go over this in American History of Voter Fraud because January 6th is actually quite integral to telling the American history of voter fraud. Because what people don't understand is after 1876, this acknowledged rigged presidential election between Tilden and Hayes, where three southern states just arbitrarily decided we're going to stop counting because, we're losing. And so the Democrats and Republicans got together. They actually made a compromise where one side would win and then the other side would control the South during Reconstruction. Democrats, that's what they wanted, and the Republicans got Rutherford B. Hayes in. And so in the end, they had to have a response to that, because they're like, we can't just have rigged elections without any function within our government to take care of this. So what they did was the Electoral Count Act of 1887. And the Electoral Count Act of 1887 said that it's not going to be political parties that determine this because they're going to be biased. It's going to be the states. They have the best chance to not be biased in this. And so if you have allegations of voter fraud or even just tabulation errors, you present that evidence when on the January 6th, the following year after the election, right? And so we show footage of January 6th, 1961, where Nixon, and people forget, Nixon is the vice president at the time. So he is in the Mike Pence role in that moment with his opponent, JFK, presenting an alternate slate of electors for the state of Hawaii because there were tabulation errors. And so Nixon actually accepted the alternate slate of electors on January 6, 1961, after the evidence was presented of the errors. And so that is the only time it's really played out officially, but that is what January 6th is always meant for. So we show in the film that there was an accused instigation of violence from the intelligence agencies because it would then interrupt the proceedings of presenting the evidence of voter fraud on January 6th.
So, all right, dude. I watched this. I was working at an Apple campus, actually the main Apple campus in Cupertino. I was working there while January 6th was happening, watching it on my phone with my buddy Josh. We were like, oh, dude, the Ashley Babbitt thing. We saw it live.
Wow.
Like, yeah, I'm at Apple and I'm all, holy shit, Josh. I'm installing fire alarms. But holy shit, Josh, did you see this? And he comes over and yeah, it's our minds blown. We were talking about going. We were talking about taking the week off and going, like my buddy Josh and I. So I go home that day and I call my buddy Chris. I'm like, dude, I was like, this couldn't have gone better for the Democrats. I was like, it squashed any chance of a legitimate grievance with the voting. This is everything that they needed to completely railroad the whole Trump MAGA movement and make it look like, well, just look, the whole insurrection thing. It played into their hands so perfectly.
Yeah, and in the end, there's a lot of evidence of the instigation of violence, and there was one of the Capitol police officers even said, like, yeah, for the first time ever, we were given helmets beforehand, and so there was some inklings of like premeditation and planning of doing this as well that they've even admitted to accidentally in certain ways.
Got some questions in the chat. All right. Freaking Wally World peak. All right. Peak and first shot. You jerks. All right. So the J question is coming up. Are you Jewish?
Oh, I would love to answer that. Well, first of all, don't insult me, obviously. I mean, don't dance around it. I am actually one of the cool ones, though. I have reported on the ADL, and this is well before October 7th and stuff. So, I talked about how the ADL actually works with the FBI to label Americans as domestic terrorists just because they're supposedly anti-Semitic. And so I think it's actually horrific, and the ADL actually creates more anti-Semitism than they supposedly fight. And so I've talked about, I've gone over a lot of different stuff that, like, for instance, anyone who says maybe there isn't 6 million, maybe it was 5,999,999 in the Holocaust. I've defended all those people who are like being labeled that way, because that like anti-Semitic for that, because that's also ridiculous. So I try to at least not be the litigious one.
You go harder than I do. I feel horrible that you even have to preface it with "I'm one of the good ones," because I hate the whole.
We have a history of justification for that. I'm not, it doesn't come from nowhere.
Well, look, so I mean, I'm not I try to separate Jews, Israelis, and the Israeli government, because to me those are three different things. Like, yes, there's obviously Israelis are Jews, but well, actually, I guess not all of them, right? But not all Jews are Israelis, and not all Israelis and not all Jews represent or agree with the Israeli government. So it's like the major problem that I see with all of this is that, if you criticize the Israeli government, which if you're a libertarian or ANCAP type person, you're criticizing every government. You're criticizing every state. 100%. It's like, so so it starts becoming weird, and I was completely unaware of the dual citizenship in government. So I was unaware of that.
Oh yeah, and there is so I've more talked about more openly, and this offends people, but this is kind of the reality of the situation. The United States and Britain at one point looked at the Middle East, and by the way, this is my opinion. This is not, but it's backed up by a lot of documents. So the United States and Britain at one point looked at the Middle East, and they're like, this is a resource heavy area. And, especially with the Suez Canal, you even see this today. Just today, they are rerouting stuff down through past South Africa because there is issues in the Suez Canal, and it's changing the whole economy. So
it's going to be bad. It's going to be so bad.
It's just one day of this issue. Okay. But anyways, Britain and Israel Britain and the United States looked at this like, look, we need to control that area, and we need to have like a quasi state representing us in that area to police and control the area. And we need someone more on our team, and not of the Arab persuasion to really represent us in this battle here. And so they chose, and this again, they redrew the entire Middle East. That's what the Sykes-Picot Agreement did. It was France, Britain. They redrew the entire Middle East, and this is part of it. Was they gave Israel to the Jews, and people don't like to hear this, but it is because United States and Britain now have much more control of the Middle East, and it's much more stable, and they have ability to maintain control over the Suez Canal. People don't like to hear that. Israel is essentially the 51st state. And again, people don't like to hear that either, but Israel hasn't paid for its own gas for almost 60 years. Okay.
I'm almost gonna like help defend you here, because you're not defending the action of the United States and Britain just giving land that isn't theirs away. You're not defending that action. You're just saying that's what happened. So it kind of is what it is.
I'm not involved in it. I wasn't at the meeting. Okay. People are acting like as like a Jew. I was there. No, I'm just telling you what occurred. So what occurred was these very powerful people looked at the Jews and like, okay, we can trust them a little more than the Arabs. And people don't want to hear this either, but it's a very violent, volatile area that's always at war with each other. And this is before the Jews were involved. When the Jews left, when the Jews came back, it's always the same issue. So, like, for instance, I'm the one who kind of has to remind people, hey, Yasser Arafat and the PLO, they invaded Jordan and try to take over Jordan. And then King Hussein pushed their asses out. And then they tried to invade Lebanon. And then that was a whole thing during the 80s. And then at the point, there was this terrible ceasefire. And then Israel wouldn't stop shelling Yasser Arafat. Oh, wait, actually, it was the PLO rebels. It wasn't Israel at all. They were the ones ignoring the ceasefire and launching bombs on Yasser Arafat. And he was why are they being so cruel and ignoring the ceasefire? That was him talking about the PLO rebels, attacking him. So I have to remind people there are two sides to this. And I will say, Jews, we can't really separate ourselves from Israel, even if we wanted to, because anytime I talk about it, I will get attached to it no matter what. And it is something like my grandma and all these people, like they fought for it vehemently. And this was like their dream realized, that they finally had a state, because again, my family were Jews in an Arab country, present day Iran, and they were kicked out because they were Jews. And so people also ignore the fact that all the Arab countries literally kicked out all the Jews or killed them. And then they point the fingers at Israel and be like, hey, you're committing apartheid and genocide. not really compared to you guys. So it's like, again, I am completely, hey, we got to watch the Israel's corruption. Netanyahu is in a point right now where he is fighting for his political life. Okay. His popularity is at such a low point, and he is undoubtedly trying to use this to win re-election and to maintain his power and to delay a election. So because they're in wartime. So I am always about like, hey, we got to watch, the terrible incentives on Israel. But I also do remind people like there is two sides to this as well.
Well, you sort of stumbled over something there. So, okay. I think we're in agreement there that actually I have I don't have the background or the knowledge to be in agreement or disagreement on this subject. I don't. I mean, more recent stuff, like how the Israeli government behaves now, the dual citizenship, I do have within our government, I do have a major opinion on that. But the idea that Netanyahu is using this to stay in power, essentially. All right, let's take that a step further. There's a lot of accusations that this was allowed to happen. This whole thing, October 7th, you know what?
Actually, so this is incredibly recent. Frontline did an amazing documentary. It was only 30 minutes, but everyone should check this out because they bravely tackled this subject and they kind of really attacked both sides in this. And they really wanted to know, okay, why did it take you 8 hours plus to respond in all these areas? And because, so for those who don't know, this is like a parallel potentially to 9/11. Ignore like Condoleezza Rice ignoring all these warnings and all this intel, right? So this is what people are really worried about. Now, logistically, there was something that I had no idea, which was there's a camera system for the border, and it was actually quite archaic, and it was reliant on balloons. And when you talk to a lot of the people in the IDF when they interviewed them, and this was like the first time you could actually hear the IDF admit to failures, because this is a big part of military strategy. Like they don't even talk about when they screwed up, and there's really no accountability. So it's hard to get answers on any of this. And again, this came out really recently, but they were saying like, yeah, we were blind instantly because we were relying on these stupid balloons that like we were complaining about for over 10 years that we could never see shit with. And then during this attack, which you got to give the other side credit when they go through how they actually, this is a sophisticated planned attack about how to just disrupt their surveillance, how to make them go blind. But the Israelis are really caught flat-footed is also what you're learning is like, they got really complacent with a lot of their technology. And even the engineers are saying like, yeah, we built a wall for like immigration, not for an army. And we now look back on it. We feel really stupid about how we built the border wall because it's so vulnerable to this exact type attack. And it's actually, the 8 hours thing, I had never heard a good answer. And it's so funny on Morning Joe, you hear like them going after the Israeli guys, and they never provide you a good answer. This is the first time I heard an actual answer. It's like, we were blind. We didn't know we were going. They were really saying like, we had better intel from social media than our own military, like from what they had, which is like, it sounds shocking, and it could sound like, oh, that this is a way to cover up for a lot of stuff. I hear you on that, but it was actually a very interesting explanation.
I haven't even said my thing yet. So,
I know what the chat is saying. I know what the chat is saying.
I haven't even. Let me look at the chat. Let's see what the chat's saying.
There's a lot of people, I'm sure most of the audience, your audience is amazing.
Well, the audience, a lot of my audience is the same audience as Forest Mommy's audience, so they already knew that you're Jewish. They're just dicking with you. So,
well, I'm just saying, I'm not one of those lying Jays. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. See, I can't say stuff like that. I'm not allowed to. I wouldn't say stuff like that either. Sorry. Let's see. Okay, so the date itself. all right. So you saw that there was journalists embedded within Hamas, like journalists from CNN and two other organizations. I can't remember what organizations they were. They were like embedded within Hamas during the attacks. Like when there's the footage of them dragging the IDF soldier out of the tank. You guys saw that? You saw that one? You know what I'm talking about? So there was journalists embedded within the terrorist group Hamas while the invasion took place. So if that's the case, they clearly had foreknowledge of the attack, right? Those journalists.
Oh yeah, I mean there is a lot of different failures on this, and so I can see why still there isn't. Okay, now the front line, that's like one really small piece. I still need a lot more information really to actually completely throw away the quote unquote conspiratorial angle, which really just means two people plotting a crime. So it doesn't mean anything crazy. It's very plausible. It's incredibly plausible that they wanted to use this for their advantage. But I have actually got
what specifically?
Well, so what's
the whole game plan? Go full tinfoil.
What I hear from from most skeptics is like, look, they want to do a land grab, right? They want to take over the West Bank and Gaza. Now, my retort to that is multiple times in both centuries, they offered the West Bank and Gaza and then some, and it wasn't accepted because they wanted everything. There wasn't really a negotiation taking place. It wasn't earnest. It was quite disingenuous, actually. And and to be fair, if you listen to interviews with Yasser Arafat, he would say they would have killed me if I took those deals. That I think his quote was like, if I took that deal, you would be you'd be making my grave. And so I try to be as honest to both sides as possible, but I think he could have accepted the 50-50 deals and then the full control of West Bank and Gaza deals multiple times. And there was also there was things before him that were offered too. So it's not just Yasser Arafat, to be fair. But it's it is, to me, it's a failure to compromise. And now we're here. And the unfortunate thing people don't realize about all this is, in the end, while the actual Palestinians are just left alone in limbo and actually suffering, the people manipulating the situation are getting so rich as these people suffer. Yes. And this is a major issue because all the Arab countries who have animosity with Israel, they understand, okay, after the 6-Day War, we can't overtly attack Israel. We can covertly attack them by funding proxy wars through these terrorist groups and having them attack Israel. Hezbollah.
Oh, you're talking about them getting rich. I was talking about the U.S. and Israel getting rich.
Oh, yeah.
This is the only way we can prop up our economy is with war.
Well,
this is our only export.
Yeah, the military-industrial complex. Yes. Yeah. We and in the end, Israel is very interesting in this because they're like our research and development outpost, and they are also our intelligence agencies, Israel and Mossad and FBI and CIA. They have a long history of working together, and I think I think in the end it's advantageous to those intelligence agencies to be like, oh, we have a foreign outpost over there, we can relay intelligence. I think it's super dirty. I don't trust any of the intelligence agencies. So when you talk about Mossad, FBI, and CIA, I'm not co-signing anything they're doing, but I'm trying to explain to you how they think about it.
Well, so with Mossad being of all intelligence agencies on Earth, they are, they're known as being pretty good, they know what's going on, things that are going to be happening. So of all intelligence agencies, for this sort of thing to just sort of sneak by, it's, to me, so to lay out
This is the toughest part about being a Jew. You can't like blame incompetence. Like a Jew incompetent? No way. You guys are pretty smart. No chance. No chance. You know,
I mean,
we can't play dumb often. That is true.
So there is, to me, this looks way more in your face than 9/11 in terms of, this really looks like, I mean, especially with Netanyahu funding Hamas. This really looks like to me, and look, this is just my opinion. It looks like they allowed it to happen to exactly what you said. They allowed it to happen to do a land grab for the West Bank and Gaza. And to me, it looks like all Palestinians will be displaced or killed. All Palestinians.
Okay. So I think it's I was explaining one side of it. I actually don't think that's going to be there because again, I feel like people pick and choose context to really like make it sound Israel is as scary as possible. And trust me, I understand, and I've done films on government corruption. Okay, I totally understand what we're talking about here, but I do want to add. So when you're talking about when Netanyahu and the Israeli government funded, facilitated, and propped up Hamas. They didn't create Hamas because it already existed. Ahmed Yassin was already had these goals and aims, but once he had got a little funding, there is a incestuous relationship here with all this. Yasser Arafat, he's kind of like the George Soros of his world. He got rich from betraying his people and being the business person that worked with the Jews. It wasn't like you weren't supposed to do that.
Well, it kind of seems like it's hey, we're all going to war now, right, guys? Kind of like at the highest levels of it, like, hey, we're not the ones dying. We're,
And this is really what I was getting at. So in the end, you look at Hamas combined, they're worth $11 billion. And this is through funding. This is through funding from Iran and Qatar elsewhere. And then, by the way, some of it is literally at Israel's behest.
What happened last night? Who did they? Israel was being accused of bombing someone big time last night.
So on the 4th anniversary of Soleimani getting taken out,
that was Soleimani's anniversary last night.
Yes, and so in my opinion. Shit. Just me being an insider, no intel, but in my opinion, it's like, oh, you're going to attack us October 7th on your anniversary. We're going to drop an anniversary bomb on your ass. And so, it just a hunch.
Who was it though? Who was the guy that they took out?
Well, it was so in Iran, I believe what it was like they were literally doing a
no, it wasn't
procession. And then in Beirut, there was another one. That's the issue. There's like two at the same time.
Yeah. It was in Beirut.
Yeah, so they got a big guy, and I forget if it was Hamas or Hezbollah, but they got some biggie in the terrorist network in Beirut. But then there was like something in Iran where it was like some funeral procession or something, and I think it was even for the anniversary, and then that was another bomb that killed 100 people. And Israel hasn't taken credit for it, but
so does that
they have suspicions, as you would.
Being ignorant to the region, like geographically, does that expand the war? Or is it potential for expanding the war?
This is what I was trying to explain. Like all the Arab countries, they're already in a cold war, if not like quasi hot war with Israel by funding all these terrorist networks. Now it gets even more complicated because, like I said, Netanyahu is literally telling Qatar, fund Hamas, give them money. And now when you hear that, that makes you really like confused. Why would they do that? If you think Hamas is this terrible terrorist network that we must wipe out, why would you also simultaneously say Qatar, give them money? Well, what I was trying to explain with Ahmed Yassin is like, yes, they funded and facilitated them, but it was in response to the fact that the PLO was literally unnegotiable. Yasser Arafat was rejecting every deal, and so they foolishly were like, all right, let's snake mongoose this. Let's fund up someone else to replace this stupid PLO, and then we'll be in more control of them. Well, that
what we did with the Taliban.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we've done, and since Reagan, and I think it's a foolish strategy. It never seems to work.
Well, that's how you get a bunch of your enemies running around with your weapons too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what was accused of what we were doing in Afghanistan, of leaving all those weapons. So this is, again, it's incredibly entangled. And this is why it is very hard to truly say there's good guys on one team and there's bad guys on another team. Right. It's much more gray.
That is my biggest thing, is I'm trying not to take it. So I legitimately have friends that are Muslim, and I legitimately have friends that are Jewish, and I ain't got no beef. My issue is that, so this shined a giant light on stuff that I was never looking at before. This whole thing. And the control, I did not realize how much control the Israeli government has over the United States government, and how much influence they have through dual citizenship Israelis in our government. And that is a major problem for me. And I kind of want your take on that.
In my opinion, this is kind of what we consider the byproduct of the military industrial complex and our intelligence agencies being so entangled in Israel. You have to realize, like, the research,
it's like fascism of nations.
It's like, I guess the best way to describe it is like, after Operation Paperclip, we had this new operation called Operation Israel, where we're going to have this whole research and development outpost where we're going to create all these things. We got the stealth bomber from Israel, the United States. We got from Israeli.
I thought we got it from Lockheed.
Well, yeah, but you know what I'm saying? It's like we get all these different things from the relationship back and forth. And in the end, the other dirty little secret is,
but is that appropriate?
Oh, hell no, because you got to understand. So the military industrial complex is literally like, hey, we can't just build these weapons without using them. Who's going to use them?
You know, that's the funny thing, too, is Ukraine got all our bullshit. Israel's getting all our good shit. Have you noticed that?
Israel mostly makes the shit. And that's the issue. It's like Azerbaijan and Armenia. Azerbaijan has this horrible advantage because they use Israeli drones.
Who's Azerbaijan? Give a little background there.
Armenia and Azerbaijan are currently in a land war. And it's they're taking over this area called Artsakh, and that's the disputed area. It's, I'm not taking a side in that either, but I also would note that it's kind of Azerbaijan is rich with oil money, and they're able to use that oil money and buy Israeli drones and use it on the poor Armenians. And it's just gotta I would say I don't know who's the good guy or bad guy in that. I am really not I only knew Armenians in California. That's the other thing. I didn't know any Azerbaijanis. I knew plenty of Armenians.
Glendale and Pasadena, man.
Yeah.
I used to be a bouncer at a strip club in Anaheim, and my girlfriend at the time was a bartender over at this strip club called the Venetian in Anaheim. That was it was run by like Armenian mob guys. This place was crazy, dude. It had the catwalk was like 3 stories tall, and they would walk out on it and they would come down on a pole. The place was crazy. Sorry, that was just, you got me sidetracked.
No, I have an Armenian tangent. I used to work for I used to manage this dispensary, and it was like,
you don't play.
And it was Armenian. Play. It was Armenian owned, and during the at the beginning of this Armenia Azerbaijan stuff, they were going nuts, and they were just talking about all the stuff they would do. And then they also hate Turkey randomly, so like, if a Turkish guy comes in, I kill him.
Well, okay, so that's the whole thing with the Young Turks, the name, and so I'm super ignorant to all this stuff, like the Armenian genocide. So I don't know. Isn't there like a big dispute?
Well, I really don't know enough to really talk about this one. But what I would say, it's just an example of like, there are disputes going on everywhere. And, it is kind of remarkable that Israel and Palestine takes center stage as, all these different things are going on. And yes, it is undoubtedly because the military industrial complex were like, Ukraine is old news. That shit was so 2023. 2024 is all about Israel.
What they want is, so you and I are actually in agreement, but what they want is like, they want you arguing the Israeli side and me arguing the Palestinian side, when that really neither one of us should be doing the same thing, either of those, because we agree, I think, that we shouldn't be funding this war. The U.S., the United States.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So here's the thing. I've always said from the beginning, not a penny, not a soldier. I don't think we can control the military industrial complex part. I think we're so naive to be like, oh, we can't send weapons over there. It's going to happen. That's how they make money. That's how Biden props up his shitty economy. Okay.
So, well, it's not, that's isn't a Biden thing either.
Well, no, it is specifically to this, when at least Trump was energy dominant and we actually had more manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. This is like, okay, this is all he's got.
But it was going on long before Trump too, is
Oh yes, no, I understand. Yeah, the military industrial complex speech should be watched by everybody. It has been an issue for so long, and it is not just Israel. It's just Israel has the closest relationship with not only the United States, but specifically the military industrial complex, because that is really why it exists.
So First Shot says the Turks slaughtered like 100,000 Christian Armenians in World War I. Okay.
Yeah, and then even with the PLO, when they invaded Lebanon, they at one point took a side against the Christian Lebanese in that, and then they massacred a bunch of Christians. And so it's there's always these conflicts that are going on, and no one is innocent here.
Right, and they want us taking sides. That's the thing, is they want all of it, like all the protests are going. See, that's so I do take the side of like, I don't like war. I'm anti-war. I don't like what's going on in Gaza, but you're not going to see me going out there protesting with all the leftards on the streets blocking freeways, like those idiots too. It's you know what I mean? I'm not agreeing with a side. I think you know what I'm saying. I'm an anti-war libertarian. I don't want
well, so for Israel, well, no, you can go first.
What do you mean?
Well, no, I mean, there's a couple things I want to say, but you go first. I need to build it up.
But I didn't really have a go first. It's more just like it's the establishment wants everybody picking a side. Like they put a conflict in front of us and they're like, okay, like plebs, all you guys fight amongst each other because we gave you the topic to argue about now. And right now it's the current thing. The current thing is Israel and Palestine. And, where I don't like what Israel's doing. I will say that, but like, that isn't the point to me. It's like kind of like what you said with U.S. Whether they're going to send weapons or not. Israel is going to do what they're going to do, whether I agree with it or not, whatever I say. My thing is like, I don't want us funding it, but like you said, that's going to happen whether I like it or not. So like, what do we do? Like it really is. Our government doesn't speak for us, man. No matter what team you're on, it doesn't matter if you get what I'm saying here.
Well, and this is the issue: is we don't understand how much money we're just giving away to other countries. Because Iran is actually quite up there with the amount of money we've given them as well. It's disturbingly close to Israel. And again, I wouldn't want any.
That's all.
I wouldn't want any money to go to any of these countries. But at least we're getting some research and development out of Israel. It's like, unfortunately, that's the best money we're spending out of all this. We're throwing money away at Ukraine. We're just doing Afghanistan. That was like, oh my God, what a waste of money. At least with Israel, that's like 3.8 billion. You can count on that investment every single year. So I will defend it in that way. But yes, Israel has numerous things that you can attack it for, and its corruption. Everyone knows about the USS Liberty. The funny thing is Israel investigated itself
Not everybody knows about the USS Liberty. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
So during the 6-Day War, when they had like literally a perfect run, they were just destroying all these Arab countries. They had one mistake. It is really it's kind of funny to think about it.
Oopsies.
It's really funny because so they have
It is.
well again to the servicemen. I'm just trying to describe it. Calm down. I'm a comedian. Chill the hell out. Anyways, so if you think about the whole context of everything, not the actual deaths, on the USS Liberty, calm down. But
my best show.
Thank you. No, but so if you think about it, so Israel is attacked by all these Arab countries, and in their response, they literally clean house, take out everybody in 6 days. They're feeling amazing. Well, as you were doing that, you hit the USS Liberty. And you killed many people, many great American servicemen, injured a bunch of others, and it was the first major stain on the U.S.-Israel relationship that was public. I'm sure there's other things, but that was like the Lusitania almost. Like, oh my God. And it was an oopsies. And then the worst part, in my opinion, is when they investigated themselves and they could have taken accountability and been like, yeah, we fucked up, and oh man, we feel so terrible about it, and we should, like, I would have made like a whole day, like, this is USS Liberty Remembrance Day. No, they were like, we investigated ourselves and we did nothing wrong. That's terrible. That's so terrible. And that is really, to me, also, that gets people to think that, Israel thinks they're beholden to this U.S. Money, and they don't even want to be part of the relationship, and they will just do whatever the hell they want. And that's a terrible precedent to set. And then, Israel had also committed terrorist acts on British-controlled Palestine, on the British, as they were upset about not getting a Jewish state and had taken the Jewish state taking forever. There were Jewish militia groups that like bombed the Camp David Hotel and so like I said, Israel is not perfect by any means. No one would ever say that. I also try to give people the context of the area. People don't really understand the history of it and how both the PLO leader Yasser Arafat and Ahmed Yassin, the Hamas leader, they both agree that Jordan is the original and first Palestinian state, because in the end, a lot of Palestinians consider that their homeland as well. And people don't understand, yes, the PLO in a petulant fashion tried to invade Jordan, try to control their homeland, and then they try to invade Lebanon. And so people don't really understand, like, there's also a interesting relationship between the Arab countries and the Palestinians, where the Arab countries, they don't want to give the Palestinians their own sovereignty and self-determination. That would give them power and take away power from them. They would rather control the Palestinians and, get rich off of funding this proxy war, funding terrorist activities, and leaving the Palestinian civilians in the freaking dust, with nothing, getting as tortured as any humans on civilization's planet Earth. But I will remind people, there technically is a group of Muslims that is going through a genocide that is bigger than the Holocaust currently. And it is not the Palestinians, it's the Uyghurs. It's this Muslim group in China. And Xinjiang, last time we checked, was twice the size of Auschwitz, which would mean it's bigger than all the other concentration camps combined. That's how many Uyghurs are being sterilized, organ harvested, and the CCP brags about it. And so I would love for these people who are advocating for the Palestinians, could you please advocate for the Uyghurs as well? Because I covered them for years, and it's like truly tragic what's happening to them. Israel's done a lot of terrible things. They are not sterilizing the Palestinians and then running pieces on CNN saying the Palestinians love to be sterilized. But they literally did run a piece in CNN saying the Uyghurs love to be sterilized by the Chinese Communist Party.
The argument there, and it wouldn't be downplaying what China is doing to the Uyghurs at all, but the retort to that would be, well, China's not our strongest ally,
Oh yeah, and in the end, Israel, I've always said, Israel screws up this thing. They want to be in the moral authority, and yet they do certain things that make it that really ruin the equity that they could have really built up. And so this is another major issue, because a lot of times, like, I actually have family in the Israeli special forces. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. Sorry if I should have mentioned that. So if I'm biased, I'll let you know.
So your Mossad is what you're telling us?
No, it doesn't go that high up. And they don't really, I don't get anything juicy or interesting. Trust me.
It's fine. I actually,
what I was going to say,
family in the NSA.
What I was going to say, I actually do have intimate knowledge of, like, a lot of them do have a lot of training on how to mitigate any civilian casualties, and yet that is part of the strategy, is to enhance the amount of civilian casualties to make it so that Israel gets blowback for even trying to take out the terrorist network. So it's just kind of a tough situation on both ends, where you want Israel to be more moral, and then you want Hamas to not be a terrorist network. But and then also you want Israel to not continually make mistakes of, like, hey, let's send money to a new group to take out the old group. Hopefully they, like, my God. So it's just, there's a lot of, I actually appreciate you asking about this, because most people feel really uncomfortable talking about it. And then they don't feel like they have any opportunity to speak their mind without being called anti-Semitic, So I thank you for even giving this opportunity, because most people are afraid to even talk about this.
It's my least favorite subject. It's absolutely.
It is not fun as a comedian. I even tried to get in a freaking 6-day war joke there, and you got a conniption fit,
No, it was hilarious, because of it, that was funny to me. The whole thing was funny. So I laugh at things that are probably inappropriate to laugh at too. So it's okay. But
everything's inappropriate now, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. But the whole topic, the people that I've learned the most from, and that are like anti-Israeli government on the whole thing, I don't even want to say anti-Israeli government. They're just like trying to present it like the whole history of the region, the conflict, all that. The people that I learned the most from it about are Jews. Dave Smith does a lot of real good work talking about this. He really tries to, he's a Jew, so
he's a J. I didn't check the website.
Dave Smith,
the tracker. I'm really excited. That's one of my dreams. I'll know I've made it when I made one of those websites. Eric Abbenante is Jewish. I'm like, yes, I'm famous enough to make one of these stupid websites.
Yeah, see, that's the thing too, is it sucks, because if you're just genuinely trying to ask questions about this, like when I found out about the dual citizenship thing, it was like all of a sudden all these wackos came out of the woodwork. Like, see? Like, well, hold on.
I have to deal with, like, there are people who are earnestly, trying to talk about government corruption, and I love those people. Those are my people. More than any, religion or anything, I love talking government corruption. But then there's also these people who are like, we need to use this as an opportunity to talk about Judaism and the Talmud. And a lot of people, like, first of all, like, were sharing like fake Talmud quotes. They weren't understanding that it's more of like a philosophical debate. Oftentimes within the Talmud, if you actually read it, there will be conflicting statements showing that it is a debate. So that's the other thing of, like, the rabbis even within the text don't agree with each other. So I think people get too hung up on like specific moments in the Talmud. Like, I don't read the Talmud. It doesn't dictate and I have it like, oh, I read this verbatim. I follow this. I believe every word of it. I mean, it's meant to kind of provide you philosophy on life in a story. It's kind of akin to saying there's slavery in the Bible, therefore all Christians must be slave owners. It's like, that's stupid as hell. And so it's just like, so there was a lot of that where I was trying to be as in the middle as possible. And people were so annoying on one side. I was like, well, I have to kind of at least explain Israel and its history and at least give it a little bit of a defense. Because a lot of it was just like insanely ignorant of the Arab countries and their relationship to all of this as well, which is kind of important because it's not just Israel and Palestine. There's all these other areas, there's all the other countries in the region. There's like 4 neighbors. It's like and then Iran is not a neighbor, but it is the overshadowing figure. And then what people don't understand is Iran and Saudi Arabia are really like the 2 competing powers in the Middle East that are kind of manipulating everything under it. And so it's just, most people don't really give a full scope and context to the Middle East, which is as fascinating and tedious of a region as it gets to go over its history. It's the same thing at once simultaneously because there's just so much history.
Yes. I don't know if you've listened to the really long Martyr Made podcast series that he did on this. He's I'm blanking on his name right now. He does a podcast with Jocko Willink, but it's called the Martyr Made podcast, and it's like 25 hours of I think it's like 8 different parts that is broken up into.
My God.
Yeah, and he really tries to
people say our films are almost 2 hours, and people are like, "Oh, it's so long." 25.
It's just
hours.
him talking though. It's just audio, and
I love it. I would dive deep into it.
He is a Jew, and he talks about like so he starts at the beginning of Zionism is where he starts, and yeah, it's fascinating. I'm not even all the way through it yet, but yeah, I was never even looking at this stuff until all this happened. And yeah,
let me give you one more perspective that I think is fascinating. So just look at Africa, right? Look at Africa and how Africa was kind of shaped and molded by the Arab countries that were near it. And then eventually North Africa is more Arab than African, technically, if you look at it. So there's been a large spread of all these different Arab countries, right? And they have the extreme power in the region. And I think when people just talk about Israel's power in the region, which is undeniable, they kind of do a disservice of like how to actually discuss the whole thing. Because there's so much, there is so much to actually really discuss here that isn't just Israel, Palestine. If you just do those 2, you're not really understanding the full scope of it. In the end, if you're not talking about Iran and Saudi Arabia as the power players manipulating all of this, you're kind of missing the gambit here.
Yeah.
In terms of the competing thing with the United States and Israel. Obviously, most people understand the United States and Israel, their corruption, their medical industrial complex. Most people don't really understand the foreign powers and what they're doing and what they've done. And honestly, the terrible things that like a lot of their people are going through. Most people don't understand, like Iran is been under political persecution since 1979. People are still to this day being killed for having the wrong political opinion, supporting the wrong political party. And they even talk about this in the government. From 1979 to like 1988, they had this great massacre, but then they extended that massacre from like in a more covert fashion from then on till now. And the people who committed that massacre are still in the Iranian government. And like, so there's a lot of people fleeing that government as well. And so I feel like people don't really like, yes, there's a lot of terrible things going on in Israel and Palestine, but people aren't understanding like the region and the interconnectivity between all these other corrupt governments as well, and how they kind of contribute to this. But like, again, and we even mentioned Egypt. In all of this, and they are a fascinating piece of this. How they don't want the Palestinians. They reject any notion of like, we don't want them coming in, and that goes back to Yasser Arafat. Actually, was picked as a demolitions expert for Egypt during the 6-Day War, and then when Egypt failed, Yasser Arafat's star rose. And that there was kind of like this animosity towards that, like, you know, so it's not even like, oh, Egypt's right or wrong. There's personal stuff to all of this. And it's so fascinating to see the history and how it goes, you know. But yeah, most people don't realize. So after the 6-Day War, that's when Egypt and all these other countries, they fell, the governments and their power. They lost a lot of power, and then the PLO and Yasser Arafat rose a lot in prominence because, like, oh wow, this demolitions expert, yeah, he might be the guy. So I just think it's there's a lot of history on both sides. I don't hear a lot of people talking about the Camp David Hotel and Israel's terrorism towards the British government. You know, trying to get a Jewish state. Most people don't even talk about that either. So I feel like there's a lot of missed stuff here.
I keep coming back to the same thing. My biggest issue is I had no idea that there was a foreign nation, because of how much we wanted to have, as Joe Biden puts it, a aircraft carrier in the Middle East, you know, and our biggest ally. Well, the level of influence that Israel has over our government is I am highly uncomfortable with. You know, if there was any other country, our ally or not, you know, if it was Canada, if it was Australia, you know, any other country, if they had that level of influence over our federal government, we would consider it, you know, like a national security threat. This just
Oh, well, I think the one mitigating factor that, and this really pisses people off, is in the end, both parties are so in the sack for Israel. It kind of balances each other out. Like, in the end, they both are in the same position here. Like,
you're saying they're so intertwined, they're one and the same?
Unfortunately, yes, there isn't really.
But that's my point.
There isn't really your side being represented in government ever.
Okay.
There's never been an anti-Israel position. It's like Thomas Massey.
Right. Okay. You're making my point though. So you got a really strong Benjamin Netanyahu over there, and then you got our puppet, you know, dish towel President Biden over here. It's like, okay, who's really in control of our government if they're so intertwined? Who's really running the U.S.? It's
well, no, I mean, like, look, there's no doubt. Like, for instance, like the control that Israel has over our politicians on both sides is quite alarming, and I joke about it all the time. I have a great clip of Vivek. He was like, some of my best investors are Israeli. Kind of like saying, like, some of my best friends are Jewish, you know, kind of a thing. It's like, yes, trust me, you can't go there. You have no candidate without being on Israel's side. That is just because in the end, the other unfortunate side is like the pro-Palestinian side is just a loser at the moment politically.
That's the thing though, is
and
being on Israel's side.
There can't, unfortunately, with politics, it is side versus side.
Well, what does that mean? Being on Israel's side now is if you criticize anything that the Israeli government does, you're anti-Semitic. So that's a very slippery slope.
Oh yeah, and that sucks. And I speak out against it. I'm trying to just explain, you know, the unfortunate power dynamics of it without, you know, excusing it. I wouldn't give a dime to Israel, but unfortunately, the military-industrial complex says otherwise on that. So a lot of it is these politicians are, yes, they are completely beholden to Israel. I understand what you're saying. They really can't go any other path with that, or they will lose funding. AIPAC will attack them. They'll get called anti-Semitic, and
this is a problem. This is a big problem.
And then let me give you the other nuance here, which is like a lot of Jews on just feel like, it is interesting how this war is so divisive, but even between the parties, you're seeing such interesting different reactions of like Jews are leaving the Democrat Party in mass, and they're being really upset and about what's going on. They may not vote for Trump, but they're trying to show a protest vote. Muslims are doing the exact same thing. They're trying to show they're upset with that. And then there's young people who are like, I'm upset that you aren't more on the Palestinian side. And so you're seeing a drop off from Democrats on that. No matter what your position is on this, it's going to be unpopular unless you take the pro-Israel side. And that's why people feel comfortable in that position.
That's not a popular position. It's a huge, it's not a partisan split.
I'm saying yes, in the public, yes. But in terms of like the money, no. It is still very popular.
You're just the kind of more illustrating the problem,
I'm kind of agreeing with you and going deeper into, yes, this is a major issue, is we have an entanglement with a foreign country. Yes.
Like what's funny is I do agree that, yeah, our interests are very much aligned for the most part, Israel and the United States. And like, even for a lot, I mean, if you really want to get down to the whole theology side of it, I guess Jews and Christians would probably have more in common than, Christians and Muslims, or Jews and Muslims, right? So it makes sense. I guess
it goes back to like the Crusades, who knows?
Yeah, so I put all that aside. Israel and the U.S. it makes sense for them to be aligned for the most part, but it doesn't make sense for them to be completely intertwined. And the whole Israel sort of creating its state, and it's not. I mean, I guess we all created our state, but it's so recent, it's so new still, and there's so many dual citizenship people, and there's so many Jews all over the world that comprise that it really has sort of like put its tentacles. Oh, that's a terrible word to use. I didn't mean to use that.
You can't do the octopus stuff anymore.
Oh man, was the Greta Thunberg thing real? Like, that was when I found out about this. Was the Greta?
No,
Thunberg
I found out too. I was like, okay, got to update my anti-Semitic thing. Apparently,
I didn't know about the octopus.
I'm pissed off about octopi now. No, I was like, octopi are cool, man. But they're also considered aliens, and I'm like, oh wait, now that I'm going back, and it's it's like you think about it, but no. Yeah,
I think you get what I'm getting at. Just it makes sense for the U.S. and Israel to be aligned, but it doesn't make sense for them to be one and the same. They are in different parts of the world. They have different interests. A lot of these interests interests are aligned, but yeah, we can't be 100% aligned on everything. Israel's wars can't be our wars, and vice versa, I guess. I don't know. Am I stupid?
Well, yes. And of course I agree with that. But we just went through Ukraine, and we go through all these different stupid wars. I don't want United States to go through Israel, but if you're the military industrial complex, of course they're chomping at the bit over this. They're really excited. And so they're going to push as much as they can to get as much funding out of it. I am excited that and quite encouraged that there is kind of bipartisan support of like, don't send them money. It seems like reasonable people on both sides are kind of on that point. Like, don't send them.
It's like an age. To me, it seems like a generational split and not a partisan split.
Well, I think at this point, it's more of a reaction to people were so sick of the money given from Ukraine that Israel is just like, a lot of people are like, yeah, I understand Israel, and I am actually very sympathetic to Israel. We already give them money. What do they need more money for? We've been giving them $3.8 billion, like a check that they could rely upon. Could you imagine? That'd be nice. And like they could rely upon for a long damn time. Okay. And it just increases and increases and increases. And so I've heard you guys are Jews and you're good at saving. So hopefully you save some of that money we sent you and you can use it. Now, here's the I will say this, the Biden administration really should apologize to Israel for saying, hey, you need to give up all of your Iron Dome like backup weapons or missiles and give them to Ukraine. Because you don't need that crap. Give up all this extra stuff and give it to Ukraine. And, you know, like they really should like apologize. Be like, yeah, maybe we were wrong on that.
I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, a lot of these countries got fooled into that.
Didn't they upgrade the Iron Dome to like some freaking, or did I get duped into making a terrible joke right now? Didn't they upgrade it to a laser system?
They are working on lasers.
Okay.
They yeah. They were inspired by the thing Marjorie Taylor Greene never said, Jewish space lasers. Like, that's a damn good idea.
Do you know Spike Cohen?
I know the name, yes.
He was the Libertarian vice president candidate in 2020, but he has it just says, it's like the actual button. It says Jewish space laser on it. I had him on my show and I just totally wasn't expecting. He just holds it up and just like, Spike. Like,
that's why he had no name recognition. He was a libertarian. Okay, that makes sense. Like the most famous libertarian I know is Dave Smith. I was like, he needs to change his name to something cool, like Dave Dangerfield. You know,
he is the most. I mean, yeah, because Michael Malice isn't a libertarian.
You know, but Dave Smith, you're awesome, but the Smith is killing you. You need something cool there.
Like what?
Dangerfield. I'm giving it like something awesome. That's what Rodney did. You know, Rodney was like, I need something cool. Dangerfield.
What was his original name?
God, I forget, but it wasn't cool.
I'm disappointed. I expected you to know that off the top of your head.
No, I haven't done my doc on him, though. He has the best story. It took him decades to hit, but he never gave up. He never gave up. From like 25 to 50, he was just writing jokes, and then he finally got his shot. So never give up. That's the Rodney story.
I'm old enough to remember seeing one of his movies in the theaters. It was Ladybugs. Do you remember a movie called Ladybugs? Actually, this is a movie that couldn't be made today.
Oh, yeah. No, a lot of these movies can be made today. Do you want a funny Rodney movie story really quick?
Well, do you know what Ladybugs was? It was the boy that dressed up as a girl to play on a girl's soccer team.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't do that. That's a great movie. Yeah. So a really quick Rodney story. First movie he did was Caddyshack, and like his first take, I think it's that scene like the where it's like that fancy like dance scene. Anyways, like there's all these different people on set that are like background actors as he's doing his lines. And then like he's doing his lines and he looks confused and he cuts. He's like, and they're like, Rodney, what's going on? He's like, they aren't laughing. And they're like, they're actors, Rodney. They're not supposed to be laughing at your lines while they're acting and being background actor. He was expecting them to just like stop what they were doing. Like, Rodney, you're so funny.
It's funnier because I'm picturing him say, they're not laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
I miss him. He's so good.
He's a total king.
I got to meet Robin Williams once.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. Well, it was even more cool because, dude, so I had this really rich friend, and sorry, I'll do a really quick story. I had a really rich friend.
Well, let's talk about Israel for 4 more hours. I don't want to talk about comedy.
Dude, dude, we haven't even got to the Epstein stuff. We're probably not going to, but we got to do more spaces. But I used to go visit my buddy Lauren up in San Francisco. I lived in San Jose, and my dad, back when I was 14 years old, 15 years old, I would take the train all the way to San Francisco, skateboard from the train station to my buddy Lauren's house in San Francisco. My dad didn't have a care in the world. That's how much different it is now. Like it was so less dangerous then. Anyway, my buddy Lauren, really rich friend. First, we get all stoned and go to our friends' houses, and we go over to our first buddy's house, stop there. I walk in and there's like Oscars and a bunch of awards on the mantle. I walk over and I look and it says "It's a Wonderful Life," Jimmy Stewart. I was at Jimmy Stewart's grandson's house. I'm like, what the heck? So go over there and we get all stoned. Go to another buddy's house and we walk in and there's this big 4x3 TV and I just see the back of some dude's head just laughing hysterically watching The Simpsons. When our buddy opens the door and turns around, Robin Williams just goes, "Hey guys," and yeah, and we went and skateboarded and hung around with Robin Williams' son. It was the most
That's so cool.
Yeah. He's my favorite comedian. It makes me sad.
I guess the thing to also kind of bring that. Yeah, I did an open mic and it was this cool experience where I got to see one of Dana Carvey's kids at an open mic, and I was like, this is so cool. And that kid passed away recently. So sad. But
oh, what?
Yeah, I know. It was
Dana
like
Carvey's kid passed away.
I was like the only one who cared too. I was like, that's a Dana Carvey breed. He's a legend. I don't care.
Dana Carvey lost a child.
Yeah, it was really sad. Yeah.
That is terrible. I thought I just saw him.
We love Dana Carvey.
I do. That's what sucks about all this COVID crap too, Eric. Is there's so many people that I loved that I was such a huge fan of.
Oh, even with Carvey, I was like, yeah, I love you, Carvey. You could have spoke up 2 years earlier on the vaccine. That really, the vaccine joke 2 years too late. Yeah, that really hurt. Actually, it didn't help.
David Spade.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Yeah, as the game's over, you guys are throwing touchdowns. Great job. Great job.
How was Norm Macdonald with the whole thing? I can't even remember how he was.
He would have been so based on it, I assume. But then again, you don't know how money controls people. This is why, okay, Cat Williams, legend. He owns all of his stuff. So no one's controlling him. He can say whatever the hell he wants. And that is something Lila and I have really looked up to, is owning your own stuff. And so I think just a lot of comedians, unfortunately, really we're just beholden to the money and the access to the stages. And, sometimes
disappointing.
Yes, it's totally not what comedy is. True comedy is about challenging authority, in my opinion.
Jim Brewer, he never even came close to bending the knee, or he talked shit the whole time.
Because people are like, oh, well, comedy's about being funny. Yeah, but you got to choose a subject matter. And also, a joke about bacon is not as impactful as Dick Gregory's joke on Bull Connor roasting the guy who put his ass in jail, the segregationist.
It reminded me of a specific comedian there. The bacon joke.
Jim Gaffigan, who is very funny.
Yes, I know, but it's exactly what I was talking about. I love Jim Gaffigan. I freaking love him. His voice that he does. I love his voice, that voice that he does. Yeah. It's so funny to me. I've loved it ever since I was a kid. He went off the reservation. Can't say that either. He went off the deep end with the COVID crap.
Oh, really? I didn't even pay attention to that. I just assume they're all leftists, and I try to avoid it because it is heartbreaking to see all these people you used to respect and they don't have the balls to say anything. Because in the end, that is what the fame and the power. I thought that was what you're supposed to use that power for, to speak up and be brave. And apparently, no, it's to bend over and to take your money and be a coward, And so that is absolutely disheartening. We show in World Death Organization, which is the history of scientific eugenics. And we show during the swine flu vaccination program, which is very similar to the COVID vaccination program in 2020. Mary Tyler Moore, who's a comedic actress, amazing comedic actress, and she was falsely used in a vaccine advertisement that the CDC put out. They just grabbed all these random celebrities like Muhammad Ali and Mary Tyler Moore and just random people at that time. And only Ford, the president at the time, had actually taken the vaccine. None of those celebrities had taken the vaccine, but none of them even spoke up about it. It was only Mary Tyler Moore is like, yeah, I didn't consent to this use of my likeness, and I didn't get the shot. And my doctor told me that he wanted me to get the shot initially, and I said, no, I don't want to get it because of the symptoms. And then afterwards, after all the stuff came out, he's like, yeah, I'm glad you didn't get that shot. You were right. And so, because a lot of people got Guillain-Barré and other neurological disorders from the swine flu vaccination. And so this is something where it's like, yeah, people used to stand up and be brave. And that just went away because unfortunately, we're at a point with the capitalist society we're in where not enough people are willing to put their dignity and maybe even their future or what their country could stand for over their money.
What was that little capitalist society buzzword that you just threw in there? You're going to trigger a bunch of.
Even Walt Disney, the king of capitalists, he was like, I'm putting my country over my dollar, my company, and I'm going to use my company to, do all this war propaganda. There used to be like, hey, yeah, we're about money and we're about making it. But if the country is asking for us something, we will dedicate everything to the country and to the great. It used to be bigger than that. And now we're just about the dollar. And hey, we're going to send over everyone's jobs overseas because of the bottom line. There's a little too much of that. The stockholder capitalism as opposed to like true, genuine capitalism, because the stockholders.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah.
Stakeholder capital.
Calm down, libs, libertarians.
Stakeholder capitalism is what you're talking about. That's what Klaus Schwab's always referring to.
Okay, I like stakeholder capitalism. That's a good way to put it.
No, we don't like stakeholder capitalism.
No, I'm saying I like the phrase because I like to demonize it.
Yes, you should like to demonize it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good phrase. Stakeholder capitalism. That's
all right. Well, we're gonna cut it at 90 minutes. So first off, what are your documentaries? All of them. Why don't you rattle them off? So everybody, we got a filmmaker here. You guys got to check out all of Eric's documentaries. Him and his wife put amazing stuff together.
Yeah. Just ignore the Israel talk. I promise I'm likable. Okay.
Dude, I think people would like you more after this talk. It was we didn't argue. I thought that was a great talk. Actually.
Well, no, I know. It's just there's no defending Israel is like literally the least popular thing you can do. So I didn't
get the impression that you were defending Israel.
I was just trying to give them a better scope of the everything. Cause I think
you were a little bit, but you weren't going hardcore Zionist at all. You weren't, you know what I mean? So
well, in defense of Zionism, we can't have one country. My God, we get kicked out of everywhere.
That's the problem too with Zionism. People don't know what it means. People have different definitions, and that's not even what I so it sounds like you're saying like the Zionism is the idea that Israel is entitled to some state.
Obvious. Right? Okay. Let me just sum it up this way. I know there are a lot of rich, powerful Jews. I am not one of them. So I'm sure there's like meetings and all these like terrible conspiratorial things. I'm just a non-powerful Jew, and everyone thinks I'm Klaus Schwab's like secondhand man. It's like, no, I have no power in any of this. I'm just trying to explain a side of it. Cause yeah, there's a lot of non-powerful Jews that kind of get lumped in with the powerful. Trust me, I attack every Jew who like hawked the vaccine, and God, there's a lot of Jews in powerful places hawking that vaccine. But we didn't cover we didn't cover a Jew. We covered a Jesuit, Anthony Fauci, in the trial of Anthony Fauci. So that's we got the trial of Anthony Fauci. We got World Death Organization, the history of scientific eugenics. We got American history of voter fraud. You can check those out at my amazing wife, Lila Hart. She's right on the other side, right over there. Anyways, I just can't get stage right.
I want both you guys to come on at some point.
Yeah, no, for sure. She's busier. Sorry, you have to reach out to our people and they're your people, But, we have all these films. You can check them out for free because they're up for public education. We just want to make the world a little more based, a little more knowledgeable, and a little more exposed to the history that they don't want you to know about. American history of voter fraud. There's never been a history of the election rigging of the United States. There's never been a compilation of that until this damn film. Okay. It was the first. And we were even shocked when we realized that, like, no one's ever done this. No one had ever done that before. We cover 200 years of elections being rigged in the United States and how it's done. And
where can people find that? Because I'm actually going to watch it. I'm literally going to watch this tonight.
Well, thank you. No, you watch it on my Twitter or lilahart.com/documentary.
lilahart.com/documentary. How do you spell Lila?
LILAHART. It's only 8 letters and people somehow screw them up all the time. So LILAHART, lilahart.com/documentary. All the films are up there, and they're also on my Twitter. And so they're just up for free. And American History of Voter Fraud and the Trial of Anthony Fauci just hit 1 million plus on Twitter. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for sharing everything. I mean, we've had some biggie supported as well. We have some good LILAHART.com. Thank you. Look at you. Right. Yeah, no, that's perfect. And we have like on my Twitter, you could see like Mike Lindell and Alex Jones saying, "Go watch American History of Voter Fraud." You know, it's oh cool. Oh yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, Lila was the champ for doing that. So yeah, please support. They're just out for free. And again, they've never a lot of it has like really never been done. Like the World Death Organization, we show you Margaret Sanger's original writings. We show you the full Negro Project of the South letter, where she talks about exterminating the Negro population. And we show it to you in full context, like when the fact check says, "Oh, when you see the full context and the full letter, it's not that bad." No, it's worse.
It's pretty bad. Worse. Yeah, it's bad. Yeah.
And my wife does a brilliant job narrating Margaret Sanger, so you can check out that.
I gotta see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we got some good stuff for you, and then we have the 2 hours of Dick, the Dick Gregory story, which is just an amazing story about how Democrats jailed him and Martin Luther King during the 1963 Birmingham civil rights protests. And when he got out of jail, and he was in jail with Martin Luther King Jr. for 4 days, when he got out, he did a press conference, and he turned that press conference into a 20-minute set. And it's in my opinion, it's the greatest stand-up set ever, considering the circumstances. He roasts the segregationist Democrat, Bull Connor, who put him in jail. And it's an all-time laugh. If you can find me a joke that has as raucous of laughter as that joke for over almost a full minute of just full raucous laughter where they're just going nuts, it's hard to beat that. And he was literally roasting the guy who put him in jail. It's, I look at jokes that have high difficulty and high impact. It doesn't get much better than Dick Gregory, who was an actual civil rights leader who actually got shot in Watts because he was a real civil rights leader. And he was admitting, the protesters were kind of shooting at the cops and they hit me.
We didn't even talk about Chappelle's joke with the freaking Jim Carrey and
I will never have a bad thing to say about Chappelle. He has been very cool to Lila, and
the joke was brilliant. Are you kidding?
Oh no,
you saw it, right?
I'm in the bag for Chappelle for the rest of my life because he was a total gentleman to Lila. And one time on stage, he interrupted, was like, "Hey, Lila," and I was like, "He's just the coolest."
That is cool. But you saw his joke, right? From his
yeah, he's the best of the 21st century, bar none.
It's the single to me that was actually I wanted to bring this up earlier. That was one of the most brilliant like setups and like single line punchlines that I've ever seen. But it reminded me, it wasn't in the same. It was just similar in a way. You've seen Norm Macdonald when he got Larry King on Larry King Live, right? With his in the closet thing.
No.
Oh, you haven't seen this.
I mean, I can't pull it up and recall. I might have, but I can't.
It's the most. I wouldn't do it justice, but it's basically like he's just like Larry King asked him, like, if there's something that you want, that the world should know about you that they don't know about you. And he was like, well, I'm highly in the closet. He's like, what? Well, what are you really revealing here, Norm? And I was like, well, I'm not revealing anything. And he's like, well, what are you saying? He's like, well, I'm a highly closeted homosexual. And like, it's like, well, wait, so you're saying you're gay? And I was like, well, what makes you say that? It's just, and it goes back and forth for like a minute.
He's such a riffer. But what, just really quick for David, so when we talk about Dave Chappelle, he is the ultimate tension builder and releaser. So that's kind of his thing with stand-up, and it's a great thing for young comedians to look at. And it's always been one of the things I learned from Chappelle is how he built up tension and released it. And he would go so deep into the tension, and most people would be afraid to do that. And it actually gave me the bravery to kind of dive that deep into jokes. So yeah, I actually, because I'm a freak savant, I knew exactly where he was going with it the minute he was doing it with it, but I was geeking out because I was like, oh my God, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And then he did it. And I was very proud of him.
I had no clue where he was going. It's probably because I love Jim Carrey as well. And he's another one of those people that's gone off the deep end. But I love Jim Carrey, and I love how he does that method acting, how he dives super deep into his roles. Anyway. All right. So, okay.
We could go for 6 hours. I know.
I could talk to you forever, dude. Well, okay. So you guys get used to it too, because long as
we'll do this more for sure.
Well, as long as Eric isn't annoyed with me, I want to be doing spaces regularly with you. I would like to host spaces regularly, do them better with where we even have topics maybe arranged ahead of time. Like, we'll talk for X amount of time about this.
We could do this, but maybe you could prepare some, asshole.
No, me, because I've just been jumping on too. Yeah. I came up with one yesterday. I was like, hey, you want to do a space? And I was like, hey, will you put it together? I'm such a douche. So no, we'll do it again soon. All right, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Eric Abbenante. There's actually, I used to say there's only me. I do have an impersonator now. He's an open mic comedian who hated me forever, and he arrived. Yeah, I know. It did feel awesome, but I'm the Eric Abbenante. That's just me, no numbers, just my name, Abbenante. It's Italian for pain in the ass last name.
It's I got a screenshot of his Twitter handle on it's probably like my third post down on X. All right. Well, before we end the show, I forgot to do it last night because it was such an important episode for me. It was you were episode 101 by the way.
I'm following big brave shoes, man. I hope I did my part because I'm a big Mary Bowden fan. We have her.
Very talented. She's awesome. Dude, she revealed something last night on this show that I don't think she's revealed on any other show. Did you know that she almost got the shot?
Oh, that's funny.
Dude, do you know why she didn't? This is incredible. To me, this is like mind-blowing, fascinating to me. She was in line to get the shot. It was too long. She was just impatient. So she left. And then she found out the whole thing's a freaking nightmare. So yeah, she just dodged a bullet because she's too impatient. That's why she didn't get the shot. How incredible is that?
Well, it's just that is an amazing. Like I could see a doctor doing that too. Like they're taking forever. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't know, but yeah, it's just so funny.
All right. So we end every show with the Chuck Norris joke from the greatest book ever written, The Truth About Chuck Norris.
Nice.
So, all right. You ready for this one? All right. Let's see. This is what we got tonight. All right, folks. Thank you, everybody, for joining in the chat. Pete Grabber, Wally World, First Shot. All you guys, sorry if I didn't mention your name. You guys are the best. Love you guys. I'll be back again tomorrow. All right. Here's tonight's Chuck Norris joke of the evening. When Chuck Norris was denied a McGriddle at McDonald's because it was 10:35, he roundhouse kicked the store so hard it became Wendy's. And on that note, stay CaliBased.